I'm at the Menin Gate on the Western Front on behalf of Valour Canada. Here we are in the heart of the city of Ypres at a monument built after the war to commemorate all those men missing during the battles to protect Ypres from German advance, from 1914 right through to 1917. There's another monument for those that died later. The key thing is, of 55,000 names on these walls, all divided up by regiments, by rank and by name in alphabetical order. And of those 55,000 names, 7,000 are Canadians. Now, we're not looking at the dead, we're looking here at the missing of the Battle of Ypres, the various battles till the end of the war. So how could you be missing? I suppose you can imagine somebody blown to pieces, blown to smithereens, somebody buried alive by a shell explosion in a shell hole, never discovered, perhaps buried in a collapsing dugout. The answer, I'm afraid, is much more prosaic. The answer actually is this. Those soldiers that were killed early in the war have a single ID tag, identity tags. They're not called dog tags. That's what Americans call them. It's what the German army call their tags, because originally Prussian dogs have to have a license tag on, hence the dog tag. On here is your name, your initials, your regiments, your number, regimental number, and your religion to ensure that you're buried correctly or cremated or whatever. The problem is that after a battle that goes wrong, and believe me, round here quite a few do, soldiers aren't necessarily found immediately. They may be found weeks, days, or months later. But in between, their comrades, their mates, come out looking for their fallen brethren. And when they find them, they need to identify them quickly. They're not going to stand in no man's land with a clipboard. What they do is they cut the piece of string holding the ID tag round the neck. Very often this is actually posted home. I would love really to have a hot meal for every time I've seen one of these with a string cut and then said, "Oh, is your great uncle missing?" How do you know? Well, the answer is because their comrades cut the piece of string. What does that mean? Well, that means that when the body is found during the war or after the war, we have a fallen soldier. We know he's Canadian. He's got Canadian insignia up. He may have a Canadian cap badge. Who he is, that is completely lost. And with no DNA being possible, none of the modern techniques, they are then buried as an unknown soldier, an unknown Canadian soldier, perhaps identified by regiment. But it all changes in September 1916, because in September 1916, they provide a second ID tag. What that means now is that if you are killed, yes, your mates can recover the red tag, meaning found, definitely dead, but the octagonal green one stays on the body. Now, these are made of vulcanized fiber. They're not rot-proof, they're not flame-proof, but they're better than nothing at all. And some soldiers would pay to have a silver tag made even out of a coin, just to be certain, or a good insurance policy. But what that means is the number of missing actually drops as a consequence of having that second ID tag. So when you look around here and you look at our missing Canadian soldiers and you think, are they somewhere out there? There's a very, very good chance they are buried as an unknown soldier of, in this case, shall we say, Canadian pioneers. They identify them by unit, but not by name through the insignia, and they are actually given the honoured burial. The only difference is it will say known unto God, because frankly they were never identified and never will be, because if you're buried in the war grave of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, you cannot be exhumed to be DNA'd. You will simply remain as the unknown soldier, but given your honoured burial, really deserved by all soldiers.